Driver is showing some obscure driving, possibly intoxicated. Currently doing 45 miles an hour. Zone through here is 25. Oh! Subject just hit the curb.
Told me I needed to calm down. Yeah. But I'm perfectly calm all the time, and he really stresses me out, and this is a rough morning.
Brian Laundrie drove Gabby Petito's van all the way back to Florida without Gabby. He parked it at his parents' house, went inside, and stayed quiet. And I'm sorry, but that is insane, because that is the moment this story stops feeling like a missing person case and starts feeling deeply wrong. A young couple leaves on this dreamy van life trip across America, posting mountains and coffee and little travel clips like they are living everybody's Pinterest fantasy, and then the boyfriend comes home alone in the van she owns, and nobody gets an explanation. That is why the whole world got obsessed with this case, because that detail is so disturbing it almost does not feel real. Gabby Petito, full name Gabrielle Venora Petito, was born on March 19, 1999, in Blue Point, New York. She was 22. By all accounts, Gabby was bright, creative, ambitious, and full of plans. She liked art, yoga, travel, nature. She wanted to build something online. She wanted a life that felt exciting and meaningful. When you look at her posts and videos, you can tell she was really trying to create a future she cared about. Her parents split when she was very young, but both sides of the family stayed involved in her life. People who knew her do not describe some dramatic, chaotic childhood. That is part of why this case feels so awful. Nothing about the beginning tells you it is going to end like this. Then she met Brian Christopher Laundrie. And Brian is one of those people where the descriptions are always kind of the same, just with different wording. Quiet, introverted, intense, odd, a little bit off. Some people probably saw him as a deep, alternative guy. Some people probably got weird vibes but could not really explain why. Gabby's family did not immediately think he was some monster. That is very important because real life is not usually that obvious in the beginning. Their relationship got serious quickly, fast enough that some people around them did not even fully clock how serious it was at first. Then they moved to Florida, where Brian's parents lived in Northport. And that move happened fast. Suddenly Gabby was down there, living with Brian and his parents. And this is where the red flags really start to matter. Later, people close to Gabby, especially her friend Rose Davis, described Brian as jealous and controlling. He did not like Gabby having too much of a life outside him. He did not like her having friends, attention, or independence that did not run through him first. There were later stories about him hiding her ID so she could not go out. That is one of those details that sounds weirdly small until you think about what it actually means. It means control over whether another adult can even leave. Gabby became close with Rose in 2020. They drove around together, made TikToks, hung out all the time. Rose later said Brian's energy around them felt weird, like he was watching. Like he was not comfortable with Gabby having this separate friendship and separate joy. That matters because controlling people often do not start by screaming, "I'm dangerous." They start by shrinking your world. Gabby had wanted for a long time to create content online. That was a real dream for her. She and Brian bought a white Ford Transit Connect, turned it into a little camper, and planned a long cross-country road trip. They built the whole van life image around it. Their shared project was called Nomadic Static. Gabby was the one building the website, the Instagram, the YouTube channel. She posted on Instagram as Gabs Petito and uploaded a YouTube video called Beginning Our Van Life Journey. And honestly, the video is good. That is one reason this case hit people so hard. Because you are not just hearing later that she had dreams. You can actually see her trying to build them. The footage is soft, hopeful, pretty, carefully edited. Nature, road, smiles, freedom. It looks like the beginning of a beautiful life. Meanwhile, behind all that, things were clearly not okay. The road trip started on July 2nd, 2021. They left New York after being there for Gabby's brother's graduation and headed west. National parks, scenic stops, the whole fantasy route. Monument Rocks, Great Sand Dunes, Zion, Bryce Canyon, Utah, Wyoming. Their social media made it look dreamy, but by August the cracks were visible. Then came August 12th in Moab, Utah, and this is one of the biggest moments in the case. Witnesses saw a fight outside the Moonflower Community Cooperative. One caller reported seeing a man slap a woman. Another described a chaotic argument.
Grant County Sheriff's Office. Hi, I'm calling. I'm right on the corner of Main Street by Moonflower, and we're driving by, and I'd like to report a domestic dispute.
What were they doing?
We drove by, and the gentleman was slapping the girl.
He was slapping her?
Yes, and then we stopped. They ran up and down the sidewalk. He proceeded to hit her, hopped in the car, and they drove off.
Okay, you said it's a white van? What kind of white van?
It was a smaller van. The make was a Ford. Model was Transit. Black ladder on the passenger side. White Ford Transit.
White Ford Transit. All right, I will let somebody know. Thank you.
Driver is showing some obscure driving, possibly intoxicated. Currently doing 45 miles an hour. Zone through here is 25. Oh! Subject just hit the curb.
Police then spotted Gabby and Brian's van being driven erratically near the entrance to Arches National Park and pulled it over. And that whole stop was captured on bodycam footage. Gabby is crying hard. She is apologizing. She is breathing fast. She is trying to explain herself. She talks about stress, the website blog, how overwhelmed she feels. She mentions OCD. She blames herself a lot. Brian looks calm, talking, smiling at points, way more in control. And that contrast is exactly why this footage still haunts people. One person looks completely emotionally shattered. The other looks like he thinks he can handle the room.
Turn off your engine. Go ahead and set your keys on the dash for me, all right? What's your guys' names?
Gabby.
Gabby, Brian? Okay. What's going on? How come you're crying?
I'm sorry, we've just been fighting this morning. Some personal issues. Some days I have really bad OCD, and I was just cleaning and straightening up the back of the van before, and I was apologizing to him and saying, I'm sorry that I'm so mean, because sometimes I have OCD and sometimes I get really frustrated. Not like mean towards him, I just I guess my vibe is I was just saying, I'm sorry if I'm in a bad mood. I've just been really stressed. I had so much work I was doing on my computer this morning.
What do you do for a living?
Just quit my job.
Okay.
I was a nutritionist. That was my job.
Cool.
And I just quit my job to travel across the country. And I'm trying to start a blog. I have a blog and stuff. So I've been building my website. So I've just been really stressed.
Gabby said she hit Brian. Brian said he was trying to calm her down and defend himself.
So there's two people that came to us and told us that they saw him hit you. There's two people saying that they saw him punch you. We're just independent witnesses by Moonflower.
Well, to be honest, I definitely hit him first.
So, tell me what's going on.
She just gets worked up sometimes, and I try and really distance myself from her. So, I locked the car and I walked away from her. What happened this morning is that she's trying to start up her own little website blog and everything. So I give her time. And we really had a nice morning, if anything. But she just got worked up because we were trying to get going and get our day going because we want to go Arches and stuff like that.
Okay. You want to tell me about those scratches on your face?
She had a cell phone in her hand. That's why I was pushing her away, because she wanted me. I locked the keys so I could walk away. I said, let's just take a breather and let's not go anywhere. Let's just calm down for a minute. She was worked up, and then she had her phone and was trying to get the keys to me. So that way, I was just trying to. I know I shouldn't push, but I was just trying to push her away to go. Let's just take a minute, step back, and breathe. And she got me with her phone.
Now, this is the part where I want to be careful, because there are still people who say the police were dealing with a confusing situation where both people admitted physical contact and they made the best decision they could in the moment. That is one perspective. But what is also true is that witnesses reported him hitting her. Gabby had visible marks, and knowing the ending makes this stuff feeling terrifying. Because now it looks like one of the last moments where something maybe could have changed. Police separated them for the night. Brian got a hotel, Gabby stayed with the van. And the detail lives in people's head for a reason. A few days later, on August 17th, Brian flew from Salt Lake City back to Florida, leaving Gabby behind. According to the Laundrie family attorney, this was to deal with a storage unit and save money. He returned on August 23rd. That trip back is confirmed. What it meant is where people start arguing. Something it really was practical. Something the timing is bizarre. Something it suggests things were already much worse. Some people also connect this to reports that Gabby had been unhappy and afraid and possibly thinking about leaving. That gets talked about a lot, but not every detail around it is equally solid. Still, once Brian comes back, the story starts getting darker real fast. On August 25th, Gabby spoke to her mother for the last time. She said they were heading toward Grand Teton and Yellowstone. That same day, Gabby's final Instagram post appeared, showing photos of her in front of a butterfly mural in Ogden, Utah. Then August 27th happens. This is the day the timeline gets very, very ugly. That afternoon, a witness saw Gabby and Brian at Mary Piglett's Tex-Mex in Jackson, Wyoming. The witness later said Brian was aggressive with staff, argued with the manager, waitress, and hostess, and that Gabby came back and cried and apologizing for his behavior. Staff later confirmed the couple had been there. That detail is awful because it is so specific. You can see it, a restaurant, a scene, a girl apologizing for the man she is with because he's making everything worse. Then CCTV captured Gabby and Brian at Whole Foods in Jackson. They pull into the parking lot, got inside, shop, come back out. Leave at 2:56 p.m., heading toward the Bridger Teton area. That is the last known footage of Gabby alive. And that footage hurts because it is so normal. Just a grocery trip, a parking lot, a couple walking in and out of a store. The last ordinary footage before everything drops into darkness. Later that same day, a text from Gabby's phone was sent to her mother saying, "Can you help Stan? I just keep getting his voicemails and missed calls." And this one tiny word became huge. Stan was Gabby's grandfather. According to Gabby's mother, Gabby did not call him Stan. She called him Grandpa. That was enough to make her mother feel something was wrong. And honestly, this is one of the creepiest details in the case. A stranger might not catch it, a mother would. Then the story gets even stranger. A travel YouTube couple later uploaded dashcam footage from August 27th showing a white van matching Gabby and Brian's near Spread Creek dispersed camping area. That ended up being huge because it narrowed the search. Then came the hitchhiking witnesses. On August 29th, Miranda Baker said she and her boyfriend picked Brian up near Coulter Bay after seeing him hitchhiking alone.
Hi, my name is Miranda Baker, and on August 29th, my boyfriend and I picked up Brian at Grand Teton National Park at 5:30 at night at Coulter Bay.
She said he offered them $200 for a short ride, which is such a weird detail it sticks immediately. She also said he seemed to panic when he realized they were headed toward Jackson Hole instead of Jackson, and he got out near Jackson Lake Dam. Then another woman said she picked Brian up that same evening and drove him back toward the Spread Creek area. She said he seemed nervous as they got closer to the campsite and wanted out before reaching the actual van. So now look at the timeline. Gabby is silent. The van is at Spread Creek. Brian is being seen alone. Texts from Gabby's phone feel wrong. Witnesses are placing him moving around without her. At that point, even before a body was found, the whole thing already felt deeply bad. Then, on August 30th, another text from Gabby's phone said, "No service in Yosemite." Her mother did not believe Gabby sent it either. One strange message, maybe you talk yourself out of it. Two strange messages, and it starts sounding like someone is trying to keep the illusion going. Then, on September 1st, Brian drove Gabby's van back to his parents' house in Northport, Florida, alone. That is the detail that hooked the whole world, because he made it home and she did not. And he said nothing. On September 11th, after not hearing from Gabby since late August, her mother filed a missing person report. 4 days later, Brian was named a person of interest. Then the entire case exploded. Media everywhere, crowds outside the Laundrie house, millions of people following every update. And Brian's parents hired a lawyer and stayed silent.
Northport Police Department.
Yes.
How you doing, sir? I apologize for bothering you. I have the detective on the phone.
I'm not talking to anybody.
You don't want to talk to us? Okay, she's on the phone. You don't want to talk to her now?
No.
Now, yes, legally they had that right. Emotionally, it made people furious, because Gabby's family was desperate for answers.
I'm asking for help from the parents of Brian, and I'm asking for help of the family members and friends of the Laundrie family as well.
And the house where Brian was sitting felt like a brick wall. People were watching the home. They believed Brian left on September 13th. Then they thought they had seen him return. Then they realized they had actually mistaken his mother for him. That detail sounds unbelievable, but it happened. On September 17th, Brian was reported missing by his parents. So now both of them were gone. Gabby was missing, Brian was missing. And the one person who probably knew exactly what happened had vanished too. Then on September 19th, human remains were found near Spread Creek in Wyoming. It was Gabby. Her death was ruled a homicide. The autopsy found blunt force injuries to the head and neck with manual strangulation. That is the moment the whole case hardens. No more maybe she's at hotel. No more maybe her phone died. No more maybe there is some weird misunderstanding. Gabby was dead. And Brian was still missing. On September 23rd, a federal arrest warrant was issued for Brian for unauthorized use of Gabby's debit card after her death. That detail made people furious too, because now the case was not just about silence. It was also about transactions, movement, timeline manipulation, and what looked like someone trying to buy time. The search for Brian dragged on for weeks. People became obsessed. Was he hiding? Was someone helping him? Was he in the swamp? Was he already dead? Brian had disappeared into the area around Mayakahatchee Creek Environmental Park and the nearby reserve. Flooding had made the search extremely difficult. Large parts of the area had been underwater. Investigators searched for weeks. His father had even joined investigators earlier in October to point out areas Brian liked. Then, on October 20th, after floodwaters had receded enough for parts of the area to reopen, Brian's parents went out there too. And this is where people start side-eyeing everything. Because very quickly, items connected to Brian were found in that area, including belongings and then his skeletal remains nearby. The official explanation was basically that the area had previously been underwater, so once the water went down, those items and remains became visible. That is the confirmed part. The suspicious part, and I want to label this clearly as suspicion, is that a lot of people felt it was wildly convenient that once the area became accessible again, his parents were there, and the discovery happened so fast. That does not prove they planted anything. That does not prove some giant cover-up. But it is one of the reasons people still feel uneasy when they talk about this case. Because from the outside it looked like this. For weeks, nobody can find him. Then the area reopens, his parents go out there, and suddenly his belongings and remains are found. That consequence bothered a lot of people. Brian's remains were skeletal, and later the autopsy concluded he died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. A notebook was found near his remains too. Then in January 2022, the FBI said the notebook contained an admission from Brian that he had killed Gabby. He also tried to explain it. He claimed she had been injured and that killing her was somehow merciful. Investigators and experts did not accept that version. It did not match the forensic findings. And honestly, that part makes people even angrier, because even at the end, it still sounds like he was trying to control the story, trying to soften what he did, trying to write himself into some tragic role. That need for control runs through the whole case. Control over Gabby's world, control over her friendships, control in the bodycam stop, control through silence, text, through the final notebook, and meanwhile Gabby's family had to learn what happened piece by piece, through witness statements, footage, phone records, media chaos, and one horrifying detail after another. This case also opened a bigger conversation because a lot of people pointed out how much national attention Gabby's disappearance got compared with other missing persons cases, especially those involving indigenous women and other marginalized communities. Gabby's family later acknowledged that too. That matters. Gabby mattered, and so do the people whose cases never get this level of urgency. Both things are true. Gabby's family later created the Gabby Petito Foundation to help families of missing persons. There were also lawsuits. Gabby's estate won a wrongful death claim against Brian Laundrie's estate, and her parents also sued Brian's parents and their attorney over the emotional distress caused by withholding information. That lawsuit was later settled. So even after the notebook, even after Brian was found, even after the headlines started cooling down, pain kept going. It just changed form. And I think that is why this case sticks to people so hard. It starts with things that feel normal. A couple, a road trip, a fight, a weird text, silence. Then one day the van comes home without the girl who should have been inside it. And after that, every detail feels like another door quietly closing. So, I want to know what part of this case gets under your skin the most. The bodycam footage in Moab? The restaurant fight? The stand text? The hitchhiking witnesses? The fact that Brian came home in her van without her? Or the way his parents were there where the area reopened and he was suddenly found? Tell me in the comments, and if you want more true crime videos like this video, subscribe and stay with me for the next one.